Hello and welcome. Today we are going to solve IGCSE Chemistry P1 MCQ paper for the Specimen 2023. Okay, question number 1. Which statement about liquids and gases is correct? Option A, 1 cm cube of gas contains more particles than 1 cm cube of liquid. Well, this is wrong because as you know that the spaces between the molecules in gases are larger than the spaces between the molecule in the liquid. Like molecules and or particles in liquid are tightly packed, so definitely they will contain more number of particles. So a given mass of liquid has a fixed volume at room temperature. Well, yes, this is correct. As you know that liquid and solids have fixed volume, whereas gases have variable volume. They take the volume of the container they are poured in. So yes, this is correct option. But let's just finish, look at the other options also to just clarify our concept. So particles in a liquid can easily be forced close together. No, we don't. We know that liquids are not easy to compress. They are incompressible. That's why they are used as hydraulic liquids. And so is true for solids, whereas gases are easily compressible. And part D, particles in a liquid have fixed positions. We know that particles in a liquid can move, they can slide over each other, and they are a bit loose compared to solids. All right, let's move to the next question. Question 2. Excuse me. Let me erase this. Okay. Question 2. Mineral wool soaked in aqueous ammonia is placed in the apparatus shown. So what is aqueous ammonia? Aqueous ammonia is, the formula of aqueous ammonia, as you know, is H3. Okay. So, and damp litmus paper, red litmus paper. We know that ammonia is a basic gas, is an alkaline gas, another word for basic. So water soluble alkaline basic gas. And it turns litmus paper, damp litmus paper, blue, from red to blue. So it states that it turns the damp litmus paper to blue. Which process led to this change? Well, as you know that ammonia is a gas, so it can diffuse from one area to another. The molecules are in random motion, and they will eventually reach the damp litmus paper, and they will turn it blue. So the option is definitely C. Let's take that. C. All right, let's move on. Excuse me. Which statement describe, sorry, it's number 3 now. Which pair of atoms contain the same number of neutrons? So, as you know that the number of neutrons can be calculated by subtracting the atomic number from the mass number. So, one by one, we need to subtract for each, and we will get to know that it's only in option C that 64 minus 29 equals to 65 minus 30. Both are giving us the same number of neutrons, the same number, which is 64 minus 29, it's 35, and 65 minus 30 is also 35. So both copper and zinc have 35 neutrons. This won't be true for the other choices. So the correct answer is C, 3C. All right, let's move on. Which statement describes the bonding in sodium chloride? So sodium is a metal and chloride is a non-metal. So we know that the bonding between metal and non-metal is ionic. And ionic bonding is the attraction between positive and negative ions. So that is clearly uh, B, a strong force of attraction between oppositely charged ions. All right. So for the 4, the answer is B. Let's move on. A covalent molecule M contains a total of 4 shared electrons. What is M? All right. Let's draw the dot and cross diagram for each. So first of all, NH3, you have N is in group 5, and there are 3 covalent bonds with hydrogen. Okay. So how many electrons will be there? The bond, how many electrons will be shared? If there are 3 covalent bonds, you know that there is only 3 pairs of electron, which means there will be 6 electrons shared. All right. So it's not ammonia, which has 4 shared electrons. So let's see about HCl. We know that HCl, there is a single covalent bond. Single covalent bond means there is only 2 shared electrons. Moving to methane, there are 4 covalent bonds. 4 covalent bonds mean there are 8 shared electrons. So that leaves with water. Water, oxygen only makes 2 covalent bonds, one with hydrogen on each side. So that 2 covalent bond will result in 4 shared electrons. So the answer is D, water. Let's move on. Okay. Number 6. The lead in pencil is made up of a mixture of graphite and clay. All right. When the percentage of graphite is increased, the pencil moves across the paper more easily. Which statement explains this observation? Well, we have studied in the bonding chapter that graphite, the structure of graphite is layered. It has covalent bonded hexagonal rings of carbon. So, and which can slide over each other. And that structure gives the graphite the lubrication property. So it's used as lubricant. So that's why the answer will be C. Graphite is a lubricant. That explains why it moves in the on the paper more easier. Let's move to question number 7. Compound with formula XO2 has a relative formula mass of 64. What is X? So if you look at the periodic table, oxygen, the mass number of oxygen, relative atomic mass is 16. So if you multiply, there are 2 atoms of oxygen, so multiply 16 with 2, 32, and then you subtract 64 minus 32, that will give us X, the atomic mass of X as 32. And we know that sulfur is the atom that has the atomic mass of 32. So the answer is D. Let's move on. When molten lead-2 bromide is electrolyzed using platinum electrodes, what is observed at each electrode? So first of all, you know that it's in the molten state. That means the only ions that exist in the solution form are lead ions and bromide ions. Lead is positive as it is metal, and bromine is negative ion. And it's neutral electrodes. Platinum are, that means they don't share the ions that are in the solution. So at the negative electrode, obviously the positive ion will go, and positive ion is lead, so it will result in a shiny gray liquid. Whereas on the positive electrode, the bromine is negative ion, so bromine will result in a brown gas, bubbles of brown gas. So that means C is the correct answer. Number 9, another electrolysis question. We have aqueous nickel 2 sulfate. This is going to be electroplated. We want to plate a layer of nickel on the piece of steel. Okay, so what should be on the negative and the positive electrode? Well, we have studied that the piece or whatever the material you want to do the coating on, you will always make it the cathode. Okay, so that the ions can go and get deposit, can be reduced on the cathode. You always, you know that at anode, oxidation takes place, and at cathode, the reduction takes place. So always on the negative electrode, you will put the material that needs to be plated. So in this case, it is steel. And on the positive electrode, you will put the material that we want to coat. So in this case, it's nickel. So the answer will be D. Okay, question 10. Which row shows the waste product released from the exhaust of a vehicle powered using a hydrogen oxygen fuel cell? All right. So hydrogen oxygen fuel cell is a clean energy source. It does not produce any pollution. So let's see what are the equations when we run a hydrogen oxygen electrolytic cell. So first one is at anode oxidation. So these are the two equations at anode and cathode. And if you want to know the overall equation of like what is overall happening in the cell, you just add left side to the left side of the arrow and right side to the right side of the arrow. So what you get is basically, so it is simply the formation of water from hydrogen and oxygen. So that means the correct answer will be D. Which shows the waste products. There is no waste product. There is only water. That's the waste product, which is environmental friendly. All right. Let's move on. All right. Energetics question. You have energy and progress of reaction. This statement about this reaction is correct. Well, first of all, heat is released. No, heat is not released because products are on a higher level. So that means heat has been absorbed from the surrounding. And when heat is absorbed from the surrounding, or when the product, for example, photosynthesis reaction, where sunlight heat is absorbed, that is a diagram for the endothermic reaction. So it is an endothermic reaction. Part C is the correct answer. Let's move on. Which changes are physical changes? So physical changes means there is no bonding available, no transfer of electron or sharing of electron happens. So it's just a physical change, condensation, boiling, etc. So option A, melting ice to form water. This is a physical change at it's just solid to liquid form, but it's still the water molecules that are present. Burning hydrogen to form water. Well, that will be a chemical change because hydrogen and water are going to form, burning hydrogen or oxygen is going to react together and forming covalent bond resulting in water. So a chemical change. Adding sodium to water, that is going to make sodium hydroxide. Again, it's going to be a transfer of electrons. So again, it's a chemical change. Boiling water to form steam, well, that's a physical change because you just convert the state of water and not actually the molecules or the particles still same that of water. So that means it's number 1 and number 4. So part B is the correct answer. Let's move on to question 13. Okay, the diagram shows an experiment to measure the rate of a chemical reaction. So what's happening here? The reaction is between metal and an acid, and we know that the gas produced will be hydrogen gas. So they are collecting the gas over time and noting down the rate in this way. So what will decrease the rate of reaction? So part A, adding water to the flask. Well, yes, this will decrease the rate of reaction because when you will add water and then you will add acid, the concentration of the acid in the flask is going to decrease. That means the particles or the molecules of HCl will find it difficult to reach metal. If we don't add water, it's directly the acid particles that can easily react and attack the metal. But if you increase the water, means you are creating distance. So in other way, the concentration of acid inside the flask is going to decrease. And we know that when the concentration decreases, the rate of reaction, concentration of a reactant decreases, the rate of reaction decreases. So part A is the correct answer, whereas all the others are going to increase the rate of reaction, all the other factors. Let's move on to 14. Okay, so you have to match the underlined observation to the correct substance. All right. So when the blue crystals are heated, the crystals turn white and steam is given off. The problem is that the hydrated cobalt chloride is not blue. It is basically pink. So let's move on to part B. Pink crystals are heated. Well, we know that anhydrous cobalt chloride is blue. It's not pink. So the color change we have learned for cobalt chloride for the presence of water is from blue to pink, anhydrous to hydrated, blue to pink. So it's the opposite they have given here. So neither A nor B. Let's move to C. Water is added to a blue solid. The blue solid turns pink. All right. So hydrated copper sulfate is already blue, but it won't turn pink. The problem is in the second sentence. It won't turn pink. It is blue, but it won't turn pink. So that's also not the correct answer. And the last is water is added to a white solid. And yes, without water, anhydrous copper sulfate is a white solid. It will turn blue when the water molecules get attached to copper sulfate. So D is the correct answer. Let's move to question number 15. Which equation shows an oxidation reaction? Part A. Carbon plus oxygen makes carbon dioxide. We have studied that addition of oxygen to any element is an oxidation reaction. That's one of the definition. Another one is that the oxidation number of an element is increased. So A is the correct answer, as you can see that an oxygen has been attached to carbon. Also, the oxidation number of oxygen has decreased from 0 to -2, whereas oxidation number of carbon has increased from 0 to +4. So A is the correct answer. Why not B? Because B is a decomposition reaction, and decomposition reaction are not redox reaction. No electron transfers take place. It just breaks down into two parts. C is a neutralization reaction, and neutralization reactions are also not oxidation reduction reactions or redox reactions. So here you can verify by finding the oxidation number of each. For example, calcium is +2 on the left side. It remains +2, the oxidation number on the right side. Similarly, chlorine is -1 on the 1 minus on the left side. It will remain as 1 minus on the right side. And again, for the D part, it's a decomposition reaction. So that leaves us with A only, which is confirmed oxidation reaction. Question 16. Farmers spread calcium hydroxide on their fields to neutralize soils that are too acidic for crops to grow well. Which ion neutralizes the acid in the soil? Well, which ion neutralizes the acid in the soil? So acidity is caused due to hydrogen ions, and to increase the acidity, to neutralize the acids, we need hydroxide ion. So the answer will be D, because also it's clear that hydroxide, calcium hydroxide, the correct formula for hydroxide is OH minus. Question 17. This is about the color of universal indicator in acids, bases, and in the neutral substance. So, which solution are acidic? Well, a simple way to remember is that bright color, for example, red, orange, yellow, these are basically pink. These colors are acidic. And like the dark colors, more closer to blue, such as purple and green. Green is basically neutral, but purple and violet, blue, those are basic colors. So this is one way of remembering. So in this table, we can see that bright colors are red and orange. So that will be the acidic substances, K and M. So that will give us the B as the correct answer. Let's move on to 18. This is the period 3. What does a period means? Period in the periodic table means that the number of shells in the row are equal. So what increases from Na to argon, sodium to argon across period 3? Well, a density, well, you can see that on the left side, you can see aluminium. Aluminium, you can see it's used in making windows and airplanes, and it is, of course, it has to be denser than on what you have on the right side, chlorine, argon, which are gases. So definitely, in density does not increases; it decreases basically while going from left to right. Melting point will also decrease, as you know that you have gases on the right and you have solids, metals on the left. So melting point is also going to decrease. Non-metallic character. What does non-metallic character means? Like tendency to accept electrons or to form covalent bonds. So yes, non-metallic character is going to increase, as you know that the periodic table, in the periodic table, the elements on the right side are basically non-metals. So C is the correct answer. And obviously the number of shells are not going to increase in a period. Number 19, sodium and rubidium are elements in group 1 of the periodic table. Which statement is correct? Excuse me. Sodium, option A, sodium atom have more electrons than rubidium atoms. Sodium atoms. Well, if you see the atomic number of sodium and rubidium, the atomic number of rubidium is bigger than sodium. So that means it's actually rubidium, which is down the group, which has more electrons. So it's not correct. Sodium has a lower density than rubidium. Again, it's not correct because rubidium is a bigger atom. It has a bigger nucleus, more protons, more neutrons, bigger mass number. So if it has bigger mass, it is going to have a bigger density. Sodium has a lower density. Well, actually, this is correct. I'm explaining, but it's actually correct. Sodium has a lower density because rubidium is a bigger atom. So it is going to have a bigger density. So option B is correct. Option C, sodium has a lower melting point than rubidium. Well, sodium does not have a lower melting point. This is because sodium is a smaller atom in size because has less number of shells. It is in a smaller period compared to rubidium. So, well, when metallic bonding take place, the attraction is stronger when the metal atom is smaller because the nucleus can easily attract the free sea of electrons which are revolving around. So that's why sodium has a higher melting point than rubidium because it works out, it favors the metallic bonding, favors the smaller size atoms which are on the top. Sodium is more reactive than rubidium. No, we know that reactivity uh, increases down the group because it gets easier to lose the electron because the distance between the nucleus and the outermost electron, which needs to be lost, it increases. So it's, as you know, the reactions get more and more exothermic down the group. So the correct option is B. All right. 20. This will be the last question for this video. Chlorine, bromine, and iodine are elements in group 7 of the periodic table. Which statement about these elements is correct? The color gets lighter down the group. No, we know that chlorine is a greenish yellow gas, then bromine is a brown gas, And then you have iodine, which are black solid. So you can see that they actually get uh, darker down the group. The density decreases down the group. Again, we actually, when you move down the group of halogens, group 7, it moves, the state changes from gas to liquid to solid. So definitely density has to increase. They are all gases at room temperature. Now, iodine is a solid at room temperature. Bromine is a liquid at room temperature. So that's also not correct. And yes, they are all non-metals. They will form, uh, they will attract electrons. They won't give away their electrons. So yes, D is the correct answer. Thank you for joining, and see part 2 for the remaining questions.